You're a young leader.
Yes, Manfredi, our youngest leader.
How did he sneak in here?
10 years older than you are.
Okay.
Same date of birth.
And we're born on the same day.
So good afternoon, everyone. I hope we kept you busy and inspired over the past few days. I'm Petra Freddi, and I run business and program development for the Milken Institute in Asia. And I'm very excited to be here with you and to interview Tony Fernandes. So as you know, this is supposed to be a young leader session, so even though the audience is a bit larger this time, the young leaders interviews are opportunities to hear some of the greatest entrepreneurs and businessmen of our time. So we're really lucky to have here with us a pioneer of low-cost airline and the founder of AirAsia, Tony Fernandes. So you just heard from him a lot at lunchtime, and if you'd like to study his bio, it's on your devices. But what we're really trying to achieve here today is to understand what is it he has done with his life to make his experience so special. So Tony, let's start at the beginning. At 37, you had an executive position working for Richard Branson in the music industry, yet you decided to give it all up and invest 35 cents of a dollar and assume an 11 million USD of debt to buy into a failing Malaysian government-led airline. What made you think to believe that this will work out, and why did you decide to turn it into a low-cost airline, which did not exist at that time in the region?
Right. Wow. That's a long question. But I suppose we go back a little bit more. Actually, Richard Branson gave me my first job. And then he decided to start an airline called Virgin Atlantic. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was crazy. So I quit and went to, at that time, Warner Communications, Warner Music, which became Time and then AOL. And as I mentioned at lunch, I felt the whole AOL Time Warner strategy was wrong. So I quit. It was funny, actually. You kind of make your career really quickly. I'm sitting at Rockefeller Plaza. All the heads of the Time Warner divisions are brought in to meet Steve Case, who was the owner of AOL. And I was listening to this presentation. I was thinking, Jesus Christ, what drugs are these guys on? It's like mad. And but I just kept my mouth shut. And Bob Pittman, who was the number 2, said to me, Tony, what do you reckon our stock price should be in a year's time? This was 2001. The stock price was about $80 odd. And I was thinking to myself, God, listening to you, if it's still $80, you've done a good job. But I thought, no, I can't say that. I'll be instantly dismissed. So I said $90. And he went, wrong, $500. And then my mouth opened. And I said, please give me some of the drugs you are taking. I knew that was the end of my career at Time Warner, or AOL Time Warner. And so I left the room. I sold my stock options, not many, just at Solomon Smith Barney, $78. And I went to my boss, and I said, look, I don't want to be a hypocrite and take your salary. I quit. He was ecstatic because he always wanted to get rid of me because he thought I was after his job, which I was. And before I could change my mind, he gave me a big check and said goodbye. And then I flew over to London because I kind of spent a lot of time in London, and in many ways London was home. And I was sitting in a bar in Hampstead thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I saw Stelios of EasyJet on TV talking about low-cost carriers. And I thought, wow, what a brilliant idea. So from that bar, I took a Green Line bus from Hampstead to Luton Airport. And I arrived at Luton, and everything was orange, and people were flying to Barcelona for £8 and Paris for £6. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then I started searching and checking with my friends back home. I said, how many Malaysians fly? And we found a statistic that only 6% of Malaysians flew. So at that moment, I decided I'm going to start a low-cost carrier. As I said, there's a very fine line between brilliance and stupidity. And I went back home and I bought myself a Handycam. I mean, we didn't have these super Samsung phones 17 years ago. And I filmed everything on EasyJet. I thought, well, since everyone had stolen my music and I'm sure no Milken young global leader has ever bought anything pirated, because you're all honest people, I decided this is a great concept that I'll bring back to Malaysia. And I kind of learned about Ryanair, and that kind of grew it. But I think the essence of your question is, I just thought it was a great idea. To me, I didn't understand aeropolitics. I didn't understand that there was SIA, Malaysian Airlines, and all that would make life a lot more difficult. I just thought, here's a great idea. Who doesn't want to fly cheap? And if only 6% of Malaysians are flying, and then I discovered only 3% of Thais and 0.6% of Indonesians, I thought there's a great product. And so a little bit of stupidity because I didn't understand all of that, all the politics that is in aviation. But I suppose the fundamental reason was, what a great idea. And if you have a great idea, then you go for it, and then you discover all the obstacles along the way. But number one, you have to have a product that people would want.
So in finance, we say that timing is everything when you invest, and you made this investment a few days before 9/11.
Yeah, welcome to the aviation world.
Did you ever think to yourself this was the worst investment decision made?
No, because I didn't invest much.
Yeah.
At the time, we had, 9/11 happened, and which was a horrific. I mean, it was kind of unbelievable. I was watching Malaysia play football, and we were losing to Laos, and that was pretty much a disaster already. And people were saying America's attacked, and it was just kind of unbelievable. And I got home, and it was very surreal seeing the Twin Towers the way it was, and oil price was shooting up. And my partner called me up and said, you sure we want to do this airline business? And I said, yeah, and it has been with me since then. I said, a crisis is a good opportunity. Because from a crisis, if you're brave enough to go ahead, there are going to be opportunities. I said, look, people still have to fly from KL to Penang. And so we should do it. And actually, airline prices collapsed. We were going to buy like really old planes, really old planes. And so then we were able to pick up a lot of better planes from the desert. Mm-hmm. A lot of the American airlines had put their planes into Nevada, and so we went and bought all those planes.
So 17 years later, you have grown from 2 planes to 240 planes.
I thought you were going to say 17 letters. You've gone from 80 pounds to 92 pounds. But I'm changing.
Just had a talk with Mike Milken about vegan and the benefits of being vegan. So next time you might not recognize Tony.
You won't.
But talking about the business.
Why are you laughing? Have faith.
So the growth been exponential. So AirAsia now has 240 planes. They have went from 200,000 passengers to 80 million passengers this year, from 200 staff to 220,000 staff. So turning an entrepreneurial venture into a real business takes a change in culture. And how do you actually lead and inspire a business whilst keeping that entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, that's not easy. And I think my biggest challenge is to keep things simple, keep bureaucracy away from the business. And it's tough. It's really tough. Actually, not 220,000, it's 20,000 staff.
Oh,
if it was 200,000 staff, everyone's going to sell my shares tomorrow. So it is tough, but we work hard at it. We really work hard at it. We have a culture department. We dress down. I dressed up today for Milken.
Oh, thank you.
And we don't have officers. We keep things very flat. It's kind of a big family as well. We kind of all know each other. And that keeps things simple and keeps the entrepreneurial side going. But as you grow, complexity comes into the organization, and there's a constant battle to take complexity out and keep things simple and keep that original DNA. When we first started AirAsia, and I tell all the younger staff, and I brought a lot of them today, all my young global leaders, of the early days. Right? When we started, I said, we can't afford food because we had no money. No bank would give us a cup of coffee, leave alone a loan. And so I said, take away all the food, and we'll sell food. Because I knew they did it as EasyJet, Ryanair. And then the night before, one of my cabin crew said to me, hey, I thought we were going to sell food. And I went, oh yeah, I forgot. So 4 of us drove down to Carrefour, and we just bought Coca-Colas and sandwiches and stuff, and that was the start of AirAsia in-flight food. And the crew said to me, you know, what price do we sell it at? I said, I don't know. Follow my mom. She's a Tupperware salesman. You know, deep down, all of you are good at selling, so just sell whatever. And that was the start. It was really, really humble beginnings. I mean, I'm not sure I've said this to many people, but you know, there was a point in AirAsia where there were two major points at the beginning. The first thing was about 8 days after we started, I was camping out the government. The government wouldn't give me any routes. So I told the chief secretary, I'm not going to leave the office till you give me one. She said, fine, whatever. And I sat there for like 9 hours. I think she got so sick of my face. She said, okay, I'll give you one more route to Langkawi. And I was like, oh, overjoyed. I was driving back. And then my chief pilot calls me up and says, hey, I've got some bad news, sir. I said, oh, don't worry, I'm in a great mood. We've got a route, I'm really happy. He said, we've had a bird strike. So I thought, what could a bird do to my mighty 737? And he said, it's grounded for 11 days. I went, Jesus Christ, what kind of birds are these? You know, I couldn't believe that birds could ground a 737. And so, you know, I'd been arguing with my pilots about doing a 25-minute turnaround. And they would give me all kinds of excuses and can't be, brake temperature, whatever. And so I called all the pilots in and I said, hey, you know, we're talking about 25 minutes? We got to do it in 20 minutes now. And we only had one plane, but that Alpha Bravo plane flew 24 hours for 11 days and kept us going, you know. So it's amazing, and you keep reminding people of those kind of humble beginnings. And there was one point, we had a flat spot on our tire, and it was debatable whether the plane could be used. And so we didn't have a spare tire. So we sat there, and this is the true story, discussing whether we should borrow, i.e. steal, a tire from Malaysian Airlines, right? We thought, well, you know, we just drive around, pick it up. They never notice, and then a few weeks later, we'll return it. I mean, this was a serious discussion. And, but sense prevailed that wasn't the right thing to do. And in the end, the engineer said, I think it's okay to pass for one more flight. And then we were able to go and borrow a tire from another company called Transmile. So those were the humble beginnings. And that's what I keep telling people, keeping things simple is kind of what's made us where we are. But as we've grown, it's become complicated. And it's a constant pressure to cut bureaucracy and keep things simple.
And you also have particular vision about the culture of your company and way you hire people. You like to take people from all different walks of life. And in fact, some of your senior staff were people you just met as you were going on about your everyday life. Tell us more about that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you bring it all together?
Yeah, I think we really believe in diversity. We have all kinds of people. You know, Malaysia's had a lot of issues on race and religion and all kinds of things, but we just said, everyone's the same. We don't mind whether you're male, female, you don't know whether you're male, female, you're still discovering. We just really very open on that, and age is also a number for us. And so we try and we interview, everyone's got talent. My job is to turn a raw diamond into a diamond. And everyone's got talent, everyone's got potential. And I think too many companies don't realize their biggest asset is their people. And that's what we've been kind of good at doing. We've really been kind of good at doing. And when we find talent, we don't let it go. And we don't look at it from the conventional ways of doing things, right? If we see someone good, then we grab them. There was a, you know, I was in Singapore, and that time I was fighting really hard with the Singapore government to give me KL Singapore as a route, and they wouldn't give it to us, and I was irritating them by being me on television, etc. And so it was really tough. And I was coming in, and a Singapore Airlines steward came up to me and said, hey, you know, he was wearing the stupid Singapore Airlines uniform, and said, you know, can I take a picture with you? And I said, yeah, sure. And then he said, I'd love to work with you. And I said, you sound a really smart guy. I said, if they let me into the country, I'll interview you. And he waited for me outside the passport counter. And I interviewed him, and he was super smart. And I said, you know, we'll hire you now. and half an hour later he joined AirAsia, and he resigned from Singapore Airlines. And he's now a CEO of Singapore operation, and actually he's also running the Philippines as well. And so we got tons of kind of talent like that all over the organization. And I think that's, if there's one success we've been good at, is allowing people to dream that they can do anything they want to do. And it doesn't matter whether you didn't go to Oxford or Harvard or whatever. If you've got a brain, we'll bring out the best in you.
So guys, if you're looking for jobs after the session, you can just walk up to Tony and his staff.
You can.
So amongst our young leaders are many people that might be at a
Every
similar...
time you say young leader, and I look at Manfredi. But he's very young at heart. Yeah.
So there are people who might be at a similar phase of their life as you were at 37 when you started AirAsia. What were the things you wish someone had told you when you were getting started?
Oh, maybe shut my mouth once in a while. No, I think, honestly, life is about making mistakes as well. You can never have a perfect flow of things, you know. Entrepreneurship and building a business, you're going to make some mistakes. But I think the best thing, and you learn from those mistakes very quickly, that's the first advice. If you make a mistake, don't let your ego get the better of you. Put your hands up and say you make a mistake and correct it and move on. But I think the advice I can give people is surround yourself with great people. And at the end of the day, it's your business and your career and your passion. Don't listen to other people's advice. You just got to follow what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. No one else can tell you. Listen to whatever people say, but ultimately it's your decision. I think sometimes people spend too much time getting too much advice from too many people and get confused. But at 37, I think I was, I didn't know how to handle politicians and governments, and I saw a good idea and I just thought, go for it, right? And it doesn't quite work like that. So maybe a calmer me would have been more, maybe I would have grown quicker. Having said that, if we were like a butterfly, we would have been steamrolled very quickly. So it's a balance.
And earlier when you were on a panel, you mentioned you've had a number of failures that were very informative for you. Can you talk us through some examples of where the lessons learned?
Investing in a Formula One team. But, I don't have any regrets.
Is there maybe one that particularly changed the direction you were taking? And
No, actually, I'm not sure, actually. I should think about that. But I think maybe sometimes when you're younger, you're more aggressive and you think you can take on the world and you can do so much. Focus is still the best advice. And maybe that's answering your earlier question. If someone had told me, don't try and do too much. Focus and deliver what you can deliver. Because you think you can take on the world when you're 35, 36, and you just want to do everything, right? And it's not possible. So that would have been good advice. And I think if I had focused more and not tried to do too many things, it probably would have been good advice at the time.
So this year's Asia Summit looks at how to navigate the world in transition in an environment where digital technology changes the way we live our lives and the way we run our businesses. You mentioned that you think about AirAsia as a digital company that has an airline rather than an airline company. What's your vision for the next 10 years and what you're doing?
Well, I think it's really hard to change the paradigm shift because people will always see us as an airline. Well, if you look at Grab or Gojek or whatever, I mean, they spend, or even Uber, they spend loads of money acquiring customers, right? And then they go and do their platform, and then they put in their money and their lending and get a massage and all these things, right? And at AirAsia, I have a business making money, getting customers. My resolution on my data is really good. And so I'm now, this whole data revolution is phenomenally exciting, and we've been working on it for the last 3.5 years. if you go back to the and starting your business is really important that you know what your basic thing. When I started, I didn't know about data 18 years ago. But I knew that the single most important thing about AirAsia was owning our customer. And so I fought very hard not to deal with travel agents. I built AirAsia.com, right? We were the first website selling airline tickets. Singapore Airlines and MAS and everyone was selling through travel agents. But then you lose your relationship with the customer. So I was really religious, and I was very dramatic. I pulled all the connections to all the global distribution systems, Abacus, Sabre, etc. And I said, we will build our own database. And that now is phenomenally valuable as we've begun to build pipes and understand data and work with super smart companies like Palantir and Google. And so here you have companies, a lot of these .com companies have spent huge amounts of money to build customers by giving away their product or subsidizing their product, etc. I get the same quality of data, but I make some money getting it as well. And we have many touch points to get that data, and our data is very resolute. So we're now using that data to go and build some other businesses. So we have a fintech business called Big Pay. We have a fantastic logistics business called Red Logistics. And then we have a very strong loyalty program that, unlike airline companies that just are really transferring profits from their P&L to a loyalty company, we're going to tokenize our loyalty. We think blockchain is it. We love blockchain. And we're going to tokenize our loyalty system and create a lifestyle travel product from it. And then finally, we think a lot of young entrepreneurs can't get onto any e-commerce platforms. And we think the airports don't have a proper marketplace, so we're building a small little e-commerce business as well. So those are the 4 kind of platforms on top of AirAsia's platform. So it's hard to change mindsets. It's hard to change paradigm shifts. It was hard to convince anyone, which is understandable, right? I'm 1 minute talking to Madonna, and people see me on a TV show, and then I go to a bank and say I want to start an airline. No one's going to believe it, right? So changing paradigm shifts has been the hardest thing. And as I keep telling people, the value in AirAsia is the huge amount of data we get. And we're the only airline in Southeast Asia that really crosses over all the 10 countries, plus we have a big business in China and India. And that's going to be very valuable. If Manfredi looks at building his huge cruise business in Southeast Asia, he has no choice but to work with me. That's why he's on the front seat. Because he'll need people and he'll need data to go on his boats of leisure. So that's where we're trying to change a paradigm shift. And I think businesses, I'm a brand builder. I love brands. We took our food. If you look at Singapore Airlines and Malaysian Airlines, they spend a fortune on these French chefs and make food that no one likes anybody. And we took food that people like and put it on the plane. And then I said, well, let's create a brand around that. So we created something called Santan. And then we kind of saw what great companies like Dean and DeLuca are doing. And we created a whole recipe book and spices around it and whole lots of things. So my job is to maximize the assets that we have in the company and create value. So one of those huge assets is data, and then all the other subsidiary things that we're doing.
So when you see yourself in 10 years, what percentage of your business will still be the flying versus
I see quite a different change. I see, it's almost like people are giving away certain things. If you go back in history, Hewlett-Packard or whatever, gave away their printers almost so that you went and bought the ink cartridges and the paper, etc., right? Or Gillette, give you a very cheap blade and then screw you later with the actual blades. So I think the ancillary businesses will be far greater than the airline. But I'm kind of old-fashioned. I think cash is king. And I always like to build businesses that generate cash and not subsidize it. So Michael O'Leary once said, he'd give away his seats for free. And because he thought he could sell a lot more other things to that. I would still think it's important to build proper businesses, but I think these whole data businesses that we're building, or the digital businesses, could be very exciting and could be a much larger part.
We like to keep the session interactive, so I would like to give you the opportunity to raise your hands if you have any questions for Tony. We'll have 2 running mics. Where's the mics in the audience? Erin, can you please look into where are the microphones?
It's a low-cost session, no mics. You got to shout.
Yeah, low cost, sorry. So who has a loud voice and wants to ask a question, please go ahead. There you go. And we have
Hey, how you doing?
well. If you can please introduce yourself and say the company you work for.
I'm Jeff Liu. I'm CEO co-founder of Milken Biosciences.
Wow, that was a very authoritative use the microphone. Don't screw with me.
So I'm Jeffrey Liu, CEO, co-founder of Engine Biosciences. Used to have the good fortune of working with Tony, so really good to see you again and hear some of those stories. So you talked about some of the next 10 years for AirAsia and kind of how it's going to transition. I'm very curious to hear what the next 10 years look like for you and your kind of
For me?
personal career.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinner. That's one battle that I've really failed at. It's really tough in this part of the world to lose weight. The discipline, I just got to really be disciplined. And meeting Mike Milken this morning was really quite inspirational, not from his brain, but from his sheer determination to kind of beat his cancer and do all that. So I was pretty motivated for about 2 hours till lunch. But I'll keep going. So for me, I think, good leadership is to know when to go. And there are a lot more other things I want to do, and I have a lot of great, young, super smart people in the company, of which you know some of them. And so I want to try and take care of it. There's a little bit more I want to do in AirAsia, then I'd like to try and do something else. And whether it's a budget cruise line with Manfredi, I don't know how that work. Maybe you'd have to swim to your ship. No tenders, you swim to the destination. We haven't quite worked out the model. I've looked at a lot of businesses, and I love the health business and the education business. Only because I think that there are huge gaps in the market, right? You have private hospitals, which I believe in. If you have money, then why shouldn't you be allowed to pay for it? But then the state system is always got so much pressure on it. Especially Asia is going to have a much bigger problem as we get older. And there's nothing in the middle. There's no kind of AirAsia in the health business. So I've looked at the hospital distribution system and the medical system, and there's so much similarity with the airline business. There's so many cartels, there's so many stupid processes, from the pharmacy system to the way someone pushes a wheelchair. Doctors are the best trade union in the world. And so I think that's something I'd love to see. What does a low-cost hospital mean? Does it mean that you get half a Panadol, or halfway through the operation we say, sorry, you ran out of stitches, pay us a new credit card? No, it's just delivering and cutting out a lot of unnecessary cost. And then a major part of hospitals is they try to do everything. Similar to Singapore Airlines, there's first class, business class, premium economy, and economy. You don't have budget rooms in the Four Seasons. And so in the same way, I think if the hospital that I'm planning, if you only focus on the 80-20 rule, so you focus on the 20% of diseases which affect 80% of people, then you can take a lot of wasteful cost out of the business. And I think one thing that the health system is preventative. I'm learning from Michael this morning on the stuff that's happening in food tech. And if I knew what I know now about the food I put into my body, I'm not saying it would have made 100% of difference, but it would have made a little bit more difference. So that's something I'd like to do. And I think education is, I believe with the delivery methodologies now, you can create low-cost education and still be high quality and still have. So those are kind of things I'd like to do. I could never retire. But I think AirAsia needs to evolve into a different leadership. It can't be built on 2 or 3 people. And I think sometimes Asian leaders overstay. And I don't want to be a senior minister or a mentor CEO. When I go, I'll really go. So yeah, I'm not sure when, but at some point, for sure.
Next question at the back.
Hi, Tony. This is Christian Xie from Tokenomics. We're a one-stop blockchain tokenization platform. You mentioned about your future vision about blockchain on AirAsia Miles. I just want to give you a little bit your insight in terms of how do you envision this? Because I know some competitive airlines are trying to do blockchain, their private blockchain that really doesn't have the impact. But AirAsia has been an innovator. I want to see how you see this program works and how does it
I can't tell you everything right now because then the other airline will copy it. But basically, blockchain can't be private, really. Otherwise, it defeats the objective, right? As you know, probably better than anyone in this room. So we want to make it as open a system so that it can be tradable and movable. But the key thing is also it can't be fluctuating like Bitcoin. Right? Then it defeats the objective. It needs some fiatable element to it. So we believe there's so much inefficiencies in currency transactions and loss of capital in between there. So we're trying to look at a way that will save our travelers money by using a blockchain cryptocurrency solution. But I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you that it will be open. It'll be an open system. But you have to have some kind of value. If it's just speculation, which is a lot of what digital currencies are right now, then it defeats the objective. We want it to be a utility, for sure. But it can't be just something nice to say. We don't believe that at AirAsia. Just to say, oh, we're going to tokenize and we're going to do this. And everyone feels good about it, pats themselves on the back, have a few press conferences, and then it dies. So it's got to be something that, if we're going to put our effort into it, it's got to be useful to our customers and useful to the traveling public.
Niels?
So I'm Niels, I'm with Accenture. At the time that you were with Warner, I worked for Bertelsmann, the parent company of
Oh,
BMG.
yeah.
And we always looked up to you guys and to Universal for the size of your catalog and all of that. And
Then you bought everybody.
yeah, kind of like that. So I have to self-confess, I may have downloaded 1 or 2 songs from Napster at the time. Because we did make an investment when we sold AOL Europe. We got a lot of money, so we were benefiting from you guys merging and us having to divest. And I thought it was interesting to see how the music industry has changed since then. And you said you made an active choice to move out of music.
Yeah.
But do you see AirAsia or yourself getting back into content?
Okay. That's a great question. Actually, what I didn't say, and you reminded me, one of the big reasons I moved out of the music business was because there were a lot of really legendary music guys who didn't want to change. They didn't want to adapt to Napster and Spotify and all those great products. And I made this big speech to say you can't hold technology back. It's like saying, well, we got a bicycle industry, so we're not going to allow the cars to come in, And so I argued really vigorously. And then we had AOL, and they still didn't want to adopt. Yeah, I was a big fan of Sean Fanning. I thought he was a brilliant kid and super smart. And I was a big fan of Napster, which was really the precursor to everything, to Spotify, etc. So that was one of the reasons I said, then they're not adapting to technology. And now the music industry is surviving because of technology, because of Spotify, because of digital downloads, etc., and accessibility. So would I go back into it? I'm not sure. I have a studio. When oil price is high, we play the blues. When oil price is low, we play rock and roll. Music is a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of it, still is. You can't run away from it. It's in your blood. If you go on AirAsia, we have great music. And we have a lot of musicians in the company. And so it's there. I don't think I'll go back into it because you got to move on and do different things. Content, yes, definitely. But content differently. There's no point doing content with Bertelsmann and Time Warner and all those companies have. But we're always kind of feel we're the people's airline. And so we have a great platform to give new artists, new musicians, and new authors a platform to put their content on. So that's something I'm working on, to give young people a chance to display their product on our platform. But me, myself, no, I probably moved on from that. But music is still a massive, massive part of my life.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm the CCO for Global Crypto Offering Exchange. We're the guys that are cryptonizing popularity, part of the blockchain.
Yeah.
Tech. AirAsia has always been in the news. You know, your growth and what you've done has been well documented. Obviously, your leadership style has pretty much moved AirAsia the way it is. You've probably gone through a lot of obstacles, but I just want to probably bring back quite a painful past, something that happened in May. Obviously, at that time when the elections in Malaysia, you know, you did a video, and that backfired quite drastically. So people were talking about mixing business and politics, and how that almost derailed your career completely. My question would be, what's your take on that, and how have you moved on, and what have you learned from that?
Yeah, you can't run an airline without being in politics, unfortunately. I'd love to be no governments there, and I'd love there to be no government airlines. And I've been saying this for years and years and years. That's the utopian Shangri-La Miss Universe stage, right? Where no business and politics don't mix. I don't want to get into that situation too much, but you know, when you run an airline, you got to work with whatever government is there. It's just impossible not to. And so sometimes you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. There's Tony Fernandes, the CEO, that has 21,000 jobs to protect, and there's Tony Fernandes, the individual. And so no regrets. I had to do what I had to do. And then when people were upset, I stood up and was countered, right? I don't think I've ever run away. I didn't regret what we did, but I said, look, I'm sorry if you got upset by it, but I had jobs and I gave the reasons as to why we did it. And I think we always stand up and be countered. You know, we've had some of the worst days of my life. We lost an aircraft in Indonesia, which was, you know, something I never imagined. I'm in the rock and roll business, and someone, you know, it was always at the back of your mind that you could have a plane crash, but you never believe it's going to happen, right? And when it happened, you know, I receive a phone call, and my COO says, "We've lost contact with an aircraft." It's you know, you cannot describe it. You cannot describe it. And then you stand there, and then suddenly lawyers and all kinds of people come in and say, "No, it's Indonesian airline. You don't have to go. You know, stay out of it, etc., etc." And I stood there and I said, "Are you mad? This is my brand. You can't just take the good things. You've got to go up there and stand up." And I flew to Surabaya, and you know, I was probably the first CEO to meet every single family, and I gave my mobile phone number to every single family. And you know, what do you say and what do you do? But you got to be there. So yeah, as I said, everyone's going to make mistakes, but never have regrets. Don't regret what I did, because I did what I did because I had to do it. I want to go into that now. And I stood up and was accountable to it afterwards. In the same way that I'm not going to run away from a plane crash. You know, we got to stand up and be counted. And I had to be there for my staff, and I had to be there for the crew we lost and the people we lost on that flight. And you don't give up. You keep going on. Safety is a marathon. It's not. No airline can say they're safe. You know. You just got to keep mitigating risk and getting better and better and better, and learning and moving forward. And no airline can avoid politics. It just can't. You know, it took me 7 years to get a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. 7 years. I mean, it's a 3-hour drive. And, I was blocked, and I tried buses to JB, and they arrested the bus driver. You name it, we had it, right? But we never gave up. I remember one newspaper reporter saying to me, hey, don't you get tired of fighting this case? I get tired writing about it. And I said, well, you got to do it, right? You just got to keep doing it. So, no regrets. Did what I did, had to do what I did, and stand up and be counted afterwards.
And just a reminder, this is a session that is off the record, so none of the comments should be then shared on any social media. Question there at the back?
Hi, Tony. First of all, thank you for sharing so honestly and openly. My name is Jason Mall. I'm the founder of a company called 88 Rising. We're a digital media platform, mainly focused on music and media and youth culture.
88 Rising?
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to work with you. Yeah.
So you know the company, you know Rich Chiga, you
Sure.
know Hire Brothers, you know what we're doing right now. So getting back to your music, and you left the business because you saw technology disrupting it. That was back at Napster's time. I see an opportunity right now where we marketed, half a dozen Asian artists globally without a label, and built 10 million followers now.
Yeah.
What do you see the application and disruption for music going forward with blockchain? Because this is something I'm actually looking into a lot.
Well, by the way, this guy runs a fantastic record company. He's super smart, and more power to you. It's great what you're doing. We're going to tie up with him and steal all his ideas. So no, that's a joke. But it's really great because he has done something that most of the major multinational record companies didn't do. He believed in talent. I mean, we have a fantastic Indonesian rapper that looks anything but a rapper, and he's like burning up the airwaves. So it's fantastic what you do. In terms of blockchain, music is perfect for blockchain because you don't have to go through publishers and rights, and if a radio station or AirAsia plays a song, you know it, right? So I think that's a smart move. Music is ripe for blockchain because it's transparent all the way. You can't run away from it. So definitely think that you're heading in the right direction if that's the way you're going.
Do you think it's going to end up disrupting the entire label system?
60 billion%.
Amen.
For sure. Publishers won't exist, which is what you're trying to do. So, and I think it's good. It's what you're doing is you're removing a lot of middlemen, which is what tech is doing, right? So my cargo system, I'm trying to get rid of the cargo agents in between. AirAsia.com was allowing the customer to deal direct with us as opposed to go through. So, yeah, we'll disrupt. It'll take time, but, you've already done it in the music sense, and so big believer in that. And thank you for working with us. And thank you for allowing me to steal all your ideas.
Brian, the ambassador of AirAsia.
Sorry?
We make Rich Brian the ambassador.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can.
Cool. Thank you.
Congratulations. It's really cool what you're doing.
Any more questions? There's one at the very back. Jacob?
Hey, Tony, just a quick question. My name is Jacob. What happened in India? You had a great entry, your Ratan Tata as your partner,
Yeah.
and now it's like a big
That's
issue.
like what?
Well, you've...
Like chicken vindaloo or something.
All right, I'll explain it now. You've got a charge sheet. You've
Sorry?
got accusations of corruption.
Yeah.
You're wanted by,
Yeah.
so...
I think
me
we're
to
doing
continue?
good. Because if we're doing bad, I wouldn't be accused of all these things, right? So if we're a bad airline, no one would waste their time. India, I got to watch what I say. In fact, sit down and shut up. It's tough for me to answer it. But look, sometimes if you're good at what you're doing, people will find all kinds of means to kind of bring you down, right? But hey, we're brought up in a tough world. So we're not going anywhere. We've got 19 aircraft. a couple of airlines in India that probably won't be there soon. And yeah, we got good partners in Tata. So we keep plugging away.
Okay.
And, you know, I started India. My father's Indian. And, yeah, I mean, he never got to see what I was doing, but he was a very proud Indian, and he loved India, et cetera, et cetera. And once when I went to do a speech in India, I was picked up by a taxi driver in Delhi, and he lived in Madras. And we started talking, and he said, oh, you're a really simple guy, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, where do you live? He said, Madras. And I said, well, how often do you get home? He said, oh, you know, once every 2 years. I went, oh, wow, why? He said, oh, the train ride is really long. And I said, how long is the train ride? He said, 4 days. To go. That must be one hell of an experience, taking an Indian train 4 days, man. You got to be a lunatic to do that. So, and I said, how much would you pay for a flight? And he gave me the number, right? And that became my dream, to try and get to that number so he can go back more often. We haven't got there, but we're about 60% there. So you got to just keep plugging away. And, you know, I've had problems everywhere, right? When you try to disrupt, when you try to change things, and there are some really, really established guys in India, let's not mention the names, they play hard, right? So you just got to be harder. Thanks. So don't give up on us in India. Love that question. What's going on in India? What's going on? I don't know. We're going on. Come join us. What do you do?
I do PR.
Huh?
Public relations.
Public relations. For which company?
I can't name it right now.
I thought PR is supposed to be PR. It's supposed to talk about yourself.
Since it's all off record in
are
this
you an
room,
Indian? See,
it's for Emirates.
are you an Indian citizen?
Yeah.
Ah, that's why. It's never what quite it seems. Anyway, if you're good at PR, come work for us.
Next question. The very front. I was hoping we'll have more microphones than one for the size of this room.
Yeah, no, it's low cost,
That's really low cost. For
Milken,
seasons,
the
that's
low-cost
very low
provider.
cost.
Thank you. Hi, Tony. My name is Jörg Kaufmann. I'm the CEO founder of Traveler Buddy. So my question is about the travel industry. How do you see the future of the middleman? So be it the online travel agencies or the corporate travel management companies, and how blockchain is going to affect that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's always going to be a middleman, because there's always going to be someone who can assemble. So right now you have a lot of travel agents which have moved into digital travel agents, whether they're Kayak or Traveloka, whatever. So there'll always be a middleman. But I think, you know, I met this guy, Vitalik, who owns Ethereum. And when you begin to see what blockchain can do, the middleman may disappear, and there may be a lot more direct connections. But I don't see that for a long time. People will find. So I think you're going from red brick to the digital space, but there'll always be online a middleman. So just a transfer from maybe traditional middlemen to digital middlemen, but they'll always be there. I don't see them disappearing. And I think many airlines want middlemen. Many companies want middlemen. They don't want the hassle. For us, we want the data. We want to have the relationship. We want to be abused by our customers when we screwed up, so we can find out. I mean, that's another myth, you know. People hate complaints. And I tell my staff, complaints are great, because that's free market research, right? Rather than hiring Bain & Co. to tell you what you're doing wrong when you already know what you're doing wrong. People have bothered to write to you to say you're screwed up. So we should act on it. And the number one TV screen in front of my office, in front of my desk, is our customer complaints. And we're looking at it every day, and we have to fix it, and we have to get it better and change the culture to change things around. So We want direct relationships, but many people don't want direct relationships. They don't want the hassle. They rather deal with travel agents and etc. So there will always be middlemen. I think the digital age, but I think it will migrate more towards the digital space, and that's happening in a lot of products.
Hi, Tony. James Redmayne. I wanted to ask you about investing in sport.
Oh,
I
knew. Well, as soon as I heard your accent. So, tell me about Queen's Park Rangers.
Well, you mentioned Formula One, and
of
course the mighty QPR as well.
The mighty QPR. Who do you support?
I'm unfortunately an Arsenal fan.
All right, we all make mistakes.
We all have our crosses to bear. Exactly. But in a world where the value of content is going up and up and up, and you look at what IPL is being sold for, the Premiership football rights every time go up. Do you feel that the investments of sport, you've just been unlucky in the areas you've invested in, and would you look to invest in other areas of sport going forward, or are you done with it because it's been a tough experience?
Yeah, no. Well, go back to the word focus. I think if I'd focused on Formula One, I was doing it 100%, we would have been a bit better. But the economics never make sense in Formula One. And right now, as you can see, most of the teams are owned by car companies, and it's a promotional expense more than anything. There are very few independent teams or big brands such as Red Bull. But no, I didn't do it. I know this is a money conference, and a lot of people here are, like money a lot. And so you sit there and think, what an asshole, he lost all that money in football and Formula One. But I didn't do it because I wanted to make money. I did it because it was my dream, right? I used to sit outside Brands Hatch. I couldn't afford to go in, because even then Bernie was ripping off everybody. And I had to watch Formula One from outside. I'd camp for 3 days outside. I used to go to a small track in Malaysia called Batu Tiga, where we had Formula like 10. Guys driving tin cans. But so it was my kind of dream, right? And I used to listen to football, and you're all too young here, except for Manfredi. I used to listen to football on the radio, shortwave radio. I don't know anyone who owns here shortwave radio. And you have to listen to the radio, hold the radio upside down, listen to BBC World Service, and hold it by the fridge so you can get a better signal. And so, for me, it was a dream, right? There I am, standing on the grid in Bahrain at a Formula One race. I'm right at the back of the grid with Richard Branson. But hey, I was there. It was a dream, and McLaren was ahead of me, and Ferrari was there. But I did it. I lost a lot of money, and I failed, but hey, I did it, and I don't regret it for a second. Similarly for football, football's my love. My parents hated me and sent me to boarding school in England, and it's a strange experience, slight digression. So my dad comes up to me one day and says, "You're going to public school in England." Great, sounds fun. And then you turn up to the airport with your uniform, and you're wearing a stupid badge which says unaccompanied minor. And you're carrying this Samsonite bag with Maggi noodles in it. And you take off, and the Malaysian airport was really cute. You could wave to everyone, and you feel really cool because half your village has come to see you off. And the coolness kind of wears out when you get on the plane. And then when you arrive in Heathrow Airport, you're like, my God, everyone's white here. I'd never seen so many white people before. I told my daughter, you have no such problem, because when you arrive in Heathrow Airport now, everyone's Indian. So you'll feel quite at home. But avoid the Indian immigration guy, because he's generally an asshole. Please don't send this out. Every time I end up with an Indian immigration officer, I'll be deported back. So, now you have the automatic one. You just put your passport on there. Trusted traveler. So, I ended up in a school that didn't play football, and I almost dropped dead and died. I thought every school in England played football, right? So football's been my life and passion. And, you know, I bought Shoot magazine and Roy of the Rovers. And there I was, you know, the last game of the season in my first year of ownership. We lose, and Bolton win, we get relegated. On the other side, Man City were playing to win the championship. If we beat Man City, Manchester United, the team I most hate in the world, become champions, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm in the bus with the players because we all went unified, and I'm looking out, and the Man City fans are abusing me and, you know, abusing the players. And I sat there and I thought, wow, this is a dream, right? I used to watch this. I used to be on the outside of the bus, and now I'm on the inside. And, you know, it was an amazing game. We were 2-1 up with 30 seconds left, or 1 minute left, and then Abu Dhabi slipped me a check, and we gave 2 goals away. And Bolton lost, and Man United weren't champions, and we weren't relegated. It's a dream come true, right? And then 2 years later, we get relegated, and then we're in the championship final. 45,000 QPR fans and Derby fans, and we're completely outplayed. We have a player sent off, and we have one shot in the 89th minute. And Bobby Zamora scores, and we're back in the Premier League. And I'm standing on the pitch at Wembley with 45,000 QPR fans. Money can't buy that experience. Whatever happens, you know, it's an amazing experience. And life is about experiences. It's not just about money. And so that's why I did it. Have we been bad at it? 100%. Can we be better at it? Yes. Will I maybe make some money from football? Who knows? But I don't regret it for 1 minute. You know, I'll tell you a last story, because I think dreams are important. If there's something I can leave you all with, as you probably know, you get a stupid box when you go to school, and it's called a tuck box. It's kind of this size, and you're supposed to put all your possessions into this stupid box. And so my best friend kind of calls me up, and he says, hey, I found your tuck box. Do you want it back? I said, yeah, send it over. So he sends it over to my house in London. And it was very emotional when I saw this box, which I hadn't seen for about 25 years. As a 12-year-old, I put 3 stickers on the box. And they were my 3 dreams when I was a 12-year-old. On the left was Qantas Airways, because I always wanted to start an airline. I thought the airline business was a fantastic business because people are generally happy when they fly. In the middle was a Williams Formula One sticker, because I loved racing, and I wanted to own a Formula One team. And on the right-hand side was a team I used to support called West Ham United. And I wanted to own a football team. And so when I saw that, I thought, wow, those were my dreams as a 12-year-old. And I've achieved them with varied success. And inside was one music cassette, Electric Light Orchestra. But it was an original cassette. Even as a 12-year-old, I bought original cassettes. And so that was my life in this box. And so I always tell people, live your dreams. Because, you know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But at least you've lived your dream, and it doesn't matter if it's successful or not successful. Those experiences, no one can ever take away from me, and they're priceless. They're priceless. But long answer to a short question, definitely content businesses can make money. Definitely we've been bad at it. Maybe we can come back and do it. And the only way sometimes is you learn the hard way until you get better. And as Chatri was saying earlier on, content is king, and there's going to be a lot more upside. But you know, I didn't go into sport for money, and I did it because I love it. And sometimes you got to do what you love. If you love money, then great. Don't go into sport. But there are some smart people who do both, who make money. Watford chairman is fantastically smart. He's an Italian man who owns two great teams, and he's made lots of money from football. So you can do it. But he's 100% focused on it. He's 100% focused. And so now we've backed off. We got Les Ferdinand and Lee who's running it, and we just try and enjoy it. It's very hard to enjoy football unless you win. Last bit of advice. If you're going to buy Arsenal, don't.
Well, I hope the insights from Tony will help you achieve your dreams in the same way he has achieved his childhood dreams. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Today. Thank you.
Thank you for attending the session.